Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring practical negotiation skills, but with a twist.
Oh, twist.
Yeah, we're drawing these skills from the unique world of hostage negotiation.
Hostage negotiation. Wow. Okay. That's not the first place that comes to mind when I think about everyday communication skills.
Right.
I'm intrigued.
I'm intrigued. Stick with us.
Okay.
You might be surprised at how much hostage negotiation can actually teach you about dealing with tricky situations in, well, really all parts of your life.
Okay. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so to guide us on this journey, we're diving into Never Split the Difference. It's a book by Chris Voss. He's a former FBI international kidnapping negotiator.
Okay.
So our mission for this deep dive is to give you, the listener, actionable techniques that you can actually use in your everyday life.
And not just in crazy hostage scenarios.
Right. Think of this deep dive as a shortcut to becoming a more effective communicator. You know, whether you're negotiating a raise, navigating a tricky family conversation, or even just trying to get your point across more clearly in a meeting at work.
Yeah, those are all things that people struggle with.
Totally.
So I like where this is going.
All right, so to kick things off, let's set the scene with a story from the book that really kind of grabbed me.
Okay.
Imagine this, Voss, back in 1993. He's a rookie negotiator.
Oh, wow.
Thrown headfirst into a bank robbery standoff in New York City.
Oh, man. Talk about trial by fire.
I know, right?
New York City, bank robbery, rookie negotiator.
Yeah, so two hostage takers, $1 million demand.
$1 million.
And Voss is surrounded by all these seasoned NYPD officers. You know, they've seen it all.
Oh, yeah. They've seen it all.
Ah.
I bet they were, like, giving the side eye.
I know. So it's a textbook example of a high-pressure situation, and Voss had to think fast.
You think?
So it made me wonder, what really goes on in a hostage negotiator's mind? Like, how do they stay so calm? How do they read people so well? How do they actually get results in these crazy situations?
Right. That's fascinating.
So I thought maybe we could break down the psychology behind negotiation a little bit,
All right.
you know, using Voss's experience and research as our guide.
Sounds good.
All right.
So I think before we get into like the specific techniques and all that, it's important to understand like the basic psychology at play in really any negotiation.
Sure.
And Voss, he draws on the work of Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman.
Oh, yeah, Kahneman.
Particularly his research on cognitive biases.
Okay.
And this idea of System 1 and System 2 thinking.
Okay. System 1, System 2 thinking. Refresh my memory on that one. I don't quite recall the distinction.
All right, so think of System 1 as your gut reaction.
Okay.
It's fast, it's intuitive, it's emotional. It's kind of like that voice in your head that says, eat the cake.
Okay.
Wow.
Eat the cake. I know that voice.
Right. And it's often driven by subconscious biases.
Yeah.
You know, those mental shortcuts our brains use to make quick decisions.
Right.
System 2, on the other hand, is like that more deliberate, rational part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's slower, it's more analytical, it takes effort. It's the voice that says, maybe just one bite of cake.
The angel on your shoulder. Okay, so what you're saying is that even when we think we're being totally logical in a negotiation,
Yeah.
our decisions are actually being influenced by these gut feelings and emotional undercurrents.
Exactly. That's one of Voss's key points.
Okay.
Just recognizing that emotions play a huge role in negotiation. Even in those seemingly like cut and dried business deals.
Okay.
So the next time you're about to make a decision in a negotiation,
Yeah.
pause for a second. Just ask yourself, is this my gut talking? You know, that's System 1, or is this a careful, considered decision? Yeah, that's System 2.
Oh, okay. That's a really useful takeaway. Just that pause, that moment of reflection. Okay, now let's get into some specific techniques from the book. One that stood out to me, just as like surprisingly simple but effective, was this idea of mirroring.
Mirroring.
Yeah, it sounds a little, well, I don't know, creepy maybe at first.
Creepy?
Are we supposed to just parrot back everything someone says?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Mirroring is more about reflecting back the other person's words in a way that shows, hey, I'm listening and I understand your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Voss, he suggests repeating back the last 3 words or the most important phrase that someone just said.
Okay.
But here's the key. You want to use a calm, inquisitive tone.
So it's less about like mimicking,
Right.
and more about showing that you're really tuned into what the other person is saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how effective this can be. Voss, he argues that mirroring actually triggers this instinctual desire in others to kind of elaborate and connect.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a subtle invitation to keep talking. And it builds trust and rapport because it shows, hey, I'm paying attention. I care about what you have to say.
Okay. I can see how that would be like disarming in a hostage situation.
Right.
But how does mirroring work in a more like everyday setting, like say a tense conversation with your boss?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Voss gives this great example of this in the book.
Okay.
It involves a student who used mirroring to diffuse a tense situation with her boss. And you'll never guess what it was about.
Okay, what was it about?
Document storage.
Document storage.
Of all things.
Okay, you've got my attention. Document storage, all right.
So the boss, he was very old school, a real stickler for paper copies. He wanted 2 copies of every single document from this massive consulting project.
Oh, man. So like file cabinets full of paper.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so he pops into the student's office and says, let's make 2 copies of all the paperwork. Now, any of us might be tempted to argue with that, right? But the student, remembering Voss's advice, she kept it simple. She calmly mirrored back, I'm sorry, 2 copies.
And just like that, the boss just launched into an explanation.
Pretty much.
I bet he didn't really have a good reason, did he?
Not really. He was just stuck in his ways.
Yeah.
But by using mirroring, the student gave him the space to kind of talk himself out of his own bad idea.
Oh, that's great.
She subtly guided him towards a more reasonable solution, which was digital backups.
Yeah. Makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Saves trees, too.
Saves trees.
Okay. So all that just from those 3 simple words, 2 copies.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a great illustration of how mirroring can be such a powerful tool for, I don't know, just diffusing tension, subtly steering the conversation. It's almost like using your opponent's momentum against them, like in judo or something. I love it.
Yeah, it's like verbal judo.
Okay. But before we get too carried away with mirroring, let's move on to another fascinating concept. Tactical empathy.
Tactical empathy.
All right.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so tactical empathy is about consciously putting yourself in the other person's shoes and truly understanding their perspective and their feelings.
Yeah.
And it's a really powerful tool for de-escalating conflict and building understanding.
That makes sense.
But, and this is a big but, it doesn't mean you have to agree with their viewpoint.
No. Okay.
So you're not saying we have to become best buddies with the person we're negotiating with.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing that their behavior, even if it seems totally irrational or frustrating, is actually driven by some underlying need or concern. And if you can tap into that why, you can often find a way to, move forward.
Oh, okay. So how does tactical empathy actually play out in a real-world scenario?
Okay, so Voss gives this fantastic example in the book involving an NBA team's ticketing manager.
Okay, ticketing manager.
So this guy was having a really tough time collecting overdue payments from season ticket holders.
Oh, man. I imagine trying to get people to pay for basketball tickets during, a recession or something.
Exactly. It's a tough sell.
Right. Yeah. I bet he was tempted to just send out those threatening collection notices. Pay up or else.
Yeah, you would think so, right?
Yeah.
But instead, he decided to try something different. He used tactical empathy.
Okay. How did he do that?
He called those fans up, and he acknowledged that, hey, times are tough. And then he framed the situation as a shared problem, we're all in this together kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. So I'm guessing that approach worked a lot better than the usual, strong-arm tactics.
You bet it did. By acknowledging their anxieties and framing the situation as a partnership, he was able to actually set up payment plans with almost all of those, delinquent ticket holders.
Wow.
Yeah. The team actually saw a significant improvement in their collection rate just by showing a little empathy.
That's pretty amazing.
Right.
So we've covered mirroring and tactical empathy, both of which, I gotta say, seem incredibly useful. But this next concept from the book, I think, is the one that really kind of caught my attention.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's mastering the art of no as a way to get to yes.
The art of no.
Yeah. This one seems counterintuitive at first.
It does. It does. How do you get to yes by saying no?
Right, exactly. But it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. So an early yes in a negotiation.
Yeah.
It's often superficial, almost like people are just trying to please you or avoid conflict.
Okay.
It's not a real yes.
Right. It's like, yeah, whatever you say.
Exactly. It's not genuine. So by saying no, You're actually opening up the negotiation. You're creating space for a more authentic conversation.
I see, I see. So it's like no is the beginning of the real conversation.
Exactly. And it goes deeper than that.
Oh, okay.
No gives the speaker a sense of control, like they have a choice. And when people feel empowered, they're more likely to, relax, open up, and tell you what they really want.
Okay. I can see that. It's like giving them permission, to be honest.
Exactly. Now, this reminds me of a story Voss tells about his own journey to becoming an FBI hostage negotiator.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
He had, no direct experience in the field. So when he applied, he went in with this very straightforward approach. Basically, he said, I want to be a hostage negotiator.
He just went right for it.
Right for it.
So what did they say?
Well, they didn't just hand him a badge and a gun. No. They told him to go volunteer at a suicide hotline.
Do suicide hotline.
And come back in a year. A suicide hotline.
Wow. That's kind of a curveball.
Right.
But thinking about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Because, working on a suicide hotline, it's all about active listening, building trust, and understanding, the darkest corners of human emotion.
Exactly. It's about getting people to that point where they feel safe enough to say no, to express their deepest fears and anxieties. And that's when the real breakthroughs happen.
That's a good point.
It's amazing how a seemingly unrelated experience like that can provide such valuable insights.
Yeah, it is. And it really highlights, sometimes the path to getting to yes involves embracing the power of no.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about saying no.
Right.
But what about these calibrated questions Voss mentions? Specifically, those starting with how or what. I'm really intrigued by those.
Me too.
Yeah. So calibrated questions, it's a subtle but really powerful way to get people to think through problems.
Okay.
And reveal crucial information, all while giving them the illusion of control.
So you're kind of guiding them toward a solution without them even realizing it.
Well, yeah, it's not about manipulation. It's about asking the right questions in the right way. So instead of demanding or accusing, you're inviting them to be a part of the solution.
Okay.
Voss tells this great story about a French-American student who used this technique to negotiate a higher salary.
Oh, tell me she didn't pull the I'm French, so I need more vacation time card.
Oh, kind of. So during the negotiation, she kept politely asking for an extra week of vacation, beyond what the company usually offered. And because the company was so focused on this vacation request, they countered by increasing her salary offer.
Wow. So by focusing on, a non-monetary variable, she actually shifted the whole negotiation in her favor.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
It's about being creative and finding those unexpected levers that can, unlock a deal. Okay, so this is all fascinating stuff.
It is, it is.
But let's shift gears for a moment.
It's okay.
And talk about black swans.
Black swans.
Voss mentions this concept in his book, and it just seems like it could be a game changer in any negotiation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are black swans? They're those hidden pieces of information, those unexpected twists and turns that can completely change the dynamics of a negotiation.
So they're like those aha moments.
Yeah, those sudden realizations that make you think, wait a minute, I hadn't considered that.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah. Voss actually borrows this term from Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
Oh, yeah.
Who wrote a book called The Black Swan.
Yeah.
It's all about these unpredictable and highly impactful events.
Right.
And in the context of negotiation, failing to uncover those black swans can have some pretty serious consequences.
Makes sense.
I bet that's especially true in hostage negotiation, where, missing a key detail could literally be a matter of life or death.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
High stakes.
So in the book, Voss shares this chilling case study about a hostage situation.
Okay.
Where the negotiators, they missed a critical piece of information. They were so focused on the hostage taker's demands that they overlooked this subtle detail, hidden in a rambling note that the hostage was forced to read over the phone.
Oh, wow.
And that one overlooked detail had devastating consequences.
Yeah, I bet.
The hostage taker had actually already committed a double homicide.
Oh, my gosh.
But the negotiators were completely unaware of this because they weren't actively listening for those subtle cues.
Oh, that's a big...
And that oversight, that failure to uncover that black swan, led to a tragic outcome.
That's a powerful reminder of how important it is to be truly present in a negotiation.
Absolutely.
to pay attention to every detail, no matter how insignificant it might seem.
Yeah. And Voss argues that black swans are present in all kinds of negotiations, not just, high-stakes hostage situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being observant, asking the right questions, and really listening for those subtle hints
Right.
that might reveal something crucial.
So how do we get better at spotting these black swans?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right. It feels like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Well, one of the, I think, simplest yet most effective strategies is to simply get FaceTime with your counterpart whenever possible.
FaceTime.
Because nonverbal communication can reveal so much more than words alone.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's about paying attention to body language, tone of voice, those subtle shifts in expression
Right.
that might betray their true thoughts and feelings.
It's like being a detective,
Yeah.
piecing together clues
Totally.
from their behavior, their environment, and of course, their words.
Exactly. And in the book, Voss provides some really practical tips for spotting liars,
Okay.
dealing with those aggressive jerks
Yeah.
and building rapport with all these different personality types.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because, everyone's different.
Totally. Okay. That's a lot to process.
It is. It is.
Let's quickly recap some of those other key takeaways before we move on, though.
Okay, sounds good. What do we got?
So first, we talked about the importance of understanding your counterparts. He calls it their religion.
Religion.
Meaning their core values and beliefs.
Oh, okay. So, what drives them? What's important to them?
Exactly. This helps you tailor your approach and build rapport. Then we touched on the similarity principle.
Similarity principle.
Finding common ground, shared experiences.
Yeah.
To create that connection and build trust.
Makes sense.
And finally, we talked about how, seemingly irrational behavior often has some kind of underlying logic or constraint.
Right.
It's about using tactical empathy to understand the why behind their actions.
Oh, that's a good one. And it's not always obvious, is it?
No, not at all. And throughout the book, Voss really stresses the importance of honesty and respect in negotiation.
Yeah, I like
So
it.
it's not about manipulation. It's about building genuine connections and finding solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, that's what makes Voss's approach so refreshing. It's not about, winning at all costs.
Right.
It's about approaching negotiation with empathy, integrity, and a real desire to find a solution that, benefits everyone involved.
Right, exactly.
It's a much more human approach.
Absolutely.
It's a much more human approach.
Totally. So we just wrapped up talking about the importance of honesty and respect in negotiation. How about now we shift our focus to a specific technique
Okay.
that can really help you steer a conversation in a direction that you like.
Okay. I like where this is going. What is it?
It's called calibrated questions.
Calibrated questions.
These questions are subtly powerful because they encourage the other person to actually come up with solutions on their own.
That's interesting.
So remind me, calibrated questions. What were those again?
Oh, so they're open-ended questions,
All right.
often starting with how or what.
Right.
And they force the other side to really think through a problem and come up with solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of telling them what to do,
Yeah.
you're prompting them to kind of figure it out on their own, which is a much more effective way to get buy-in.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So instead of saying, you need to do this,
Right.
you might ask, how can we make this happen?
Exactly. And Voss, he provides this really powerful example of this from an actual hostage negotiation.
Oh, okay.
The negotiator was struggling to get information from the hostage taker. The situation, it was incredibly tense. He was running out of options.
Yeah.
So instead of resorting to, threats or ultimatums,
Yeah.
he asked this seemingly simple calibrated question. He said, "How do I know she's all right?"
How do I know she's all right? It sounds almost too easy.
Right. It's disarmingly direct. Yet it forces the hostage taker to pause and actually think about how to address the negotiator's concern. And you know what? It worked.
Really?
Yeah. The hostage taker, he was completely thrown off guard by the question. He volunteered to actually put the hostage on the phone.
Wow. Just by asking a how question.
Yeah.
He changed the whole power dynamic. He got valuable information without making any concessions. It's like he outsmarted the hostage taker with simple curiosity.
Right. It's wait a minute. You're asking me how to prove this to you.
Instead of demanding it.
Instead of demanding it. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. Calibrated questions. They give the other side the illusion of control while subtly guiding them toward the outcome that you want. It's almost like magic.
Yeah.
And speaking of uncovering hidden information, let's circle back to those black swans we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Remember how you mentioned that, like, missing those black swans can have disastrous consequences in hostage negotiations?
Oh, I definitely remember that story. It was chilling. It really highlighted how those seemingly insignificant details, they can be game changers.
Totally. And Voss, he argues that black swans are everywhere, not just in hostage situations.
Mm.
So think about it. You're negotiating a big business deal, and you think you've got all your bases covered.
Right.
But what if there's this crucial piece of information, a black swan, that you're completely unaware of?
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like, I don't know, a competitor's offer.
Yeah.
Or some kind of hidden constraint on the other side that's, influencing their decisions.
Oh, I can totally see how that would, throw a wrench in the whole negotiation.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Uh-huh.
And that missing piece of information, it could, make or break the deal.
It could. So how do you unearth these elusive black swans? Seems like really hard.
Well, it's a shift in mindset, really. You have to be willing to, actively listen, ask probing questions, and be open to those unexpected revelations. It's like being a detective.
Yeah.
Always looking for those subtle clues that might point to something bigger.
Okay.
So how do we get better at spotting those subtle clues, though? Because it feels like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes.
It does. It's like, how do you even know where to start looking?
Well, one of the best ways to uncover those black swans is to understand the religion of your counterpart.
Religion.
Meaning their core values and beliefs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what drives them?
Right.
What's important to them?
Exactly. So it's about understanding what truly motivates them, not about converting them to your way of thinking, by the way. Do you remember that story Voss tells about the tobacco farmer?
The one who drove his tractor to Washington, D.C.
That's the one.
Yeah, and threatened to blow it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was crazy.
It was a tense standoff. And at first, the negotiators, they were baffled by the farmer's seemingly irrational behavior.
Yeah, that is a head scratcher.
But once they dug deeper, they realized that his religion, so to speak, was this deep-seated belief that the government was unfairly targeting tobacco farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that core belief helped them resolve the situation.
It did, right. Because once they understood the why behind his actions, they could speak to him in a way that resonated.
Oh, that's a good point.
They appealed to his sense of fairness, his pride in his work, and they were actually able to convince him to surrender peacefully.
Wow.
It's a powerful example of how getting to the heart of someone's motivations can unlock a seemingly impossible negotiation.
It really is. It's amazing how a seemingly insignificant piece of information can completely change the game.
It is. And sometimes those black swans, they come from unexpected places.
Right.
Do you remember how Voss, he emphasizes getting FaceTime with your counterpart whenever possible?
Oh, yeah. He says it can reveal so much more than just emails or phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those nonverbal cues, they can speak volumes.
Oh, yeah.
Like a quick 10-minute meeting in person, that might uncover more than days of back and forth over email.
I bet. Yeah, so it's like those subtle signals like body language, tone of voice, the way they hesitate before answering a question. Those can tell you so much more than their words alone.
Got it.
Yeah.
In the book, Voss actually dives into how to read those nonverbal cues.
Okay.
Like how to spot a liar, how to deal with an aggressive jerk.
Yeah.
And even how to build rapport with different personality types.
Oh, yeah, the personality types.
Yeah.
Voss talks about analysts, accommodators, and assertive types.
Right.
Let's break those down a little bit further.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with analysts.
Okay, Emma.
They're all about data, logic, facts. Imagine someone showing up to a negotiation with spreadsheets and charts.
Oh, yeah. Super prepared.
That's an analyst.
Okay.
So they're not exactly the touchy-feely type. You can't win them over with emotional appeals, can you?
No, probably not. In fact, that might actually backfire.
Oh, okay.
Analysts, they're very methodical. They like to have all the information before making a decision. So be patient, Avoid hard-selling tactics. And focus on presenting clear, logical arguments backed up by evidence.
So appeal to their sense of reason.
Exactly.
Okay. What about accommodators?
Okay, accommodators, they're all about relationships and harmony.
Okay.
They're like the peacemakers.
Yeah.
They value consensus.
Right.
And they're more likely to make concessions to avoid conflict.
So they're the ones who just want everyone to be happy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So when you're negotiating with an accommodator, you want to focus on building rapport emphasizing the shared benefits of the deal, and really finding that win-win solution where everyone feels good about the outcome.
So it sounds like you need to appeal to their sense of fairness.
You got it. And be prepared to, make some concessions yourself, because they're more likely to reciprocate if they feel like you're being fair and reasonable.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the assertive types?
Okay, assertive types, they're direct, they're decisive, they value efficiency and control, and they're not afraid to, push for what they want.
So these are the negotiators who come to the table with a clear agenda and a take it or leave it attitude.
It can be.
Yeah.
But it's not always about aggression. They just like to move quickly, get things done.
Okay.
So when you're communicating with them, be clear, be concise. Don't waste their time with small talk.
So cut to the chase. Lay out the key terms and be prepared to negotiate firmly.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to stand your ground. Assertive types, they respect those who advocate for their own interests.
It's about finding that balance between cooperation and competition.
Right.
Asserting yourself without being a jerk.
Exactly. And remember those calibrated questions we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Those are especially effective with assertive types, especially when those questions focus on implementation and results.
So it's like giving them a sense of control while also kind of nudging them toward a solution that works for both parties.
Exactly.
Okay. Now that we've talked about the different personality types, how about we talk about this term I've heard thrown around, the zone of possible agreement, or ZOPA. I'm not always sure I understand what it really means.
Okay, well, the ZOP, it's basically that sweet spot
Yeah.
where both parties' interests overlap, that range where a mutually agreeable deal can be made.
Okay.
Think of it as the area where everyone could walk away happy.
So it's like finding that Venn diagram overlap.
Yeah.
Where both sides can get at least some of what they want.
Exactly. Exactly.
But how do you actually figure out where that ZOPA is? It seems kind of mysterious.
Well, it starts with understanding both your own needs and your counterpart's needs.
Yeah.
You need to know your bottom line.
Yeah.
What you're willing to concede, what you absolutely must achieve in the negotiation.
So knowing your walkaway point is key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just as important to understand your counterpart's needs, their motivations, their constraints.
And that's where those black swans come into play, right? Uncovering those hidden pieces of information that can give you an edge.
Exactly. Once you have a better grasp of both sides' needs, you can start to kind of see that potential overlap. That sweet spot where a deal can be made. It's a dynamic process. It's not always obvious at first.
So it's like a dance,
Back
and forth, probing, listening, until you find that magical point of convergence.
Exactly. Exactly. And skilled negotiators, they get that the ZOPA isn't static. It can shift, it can evolve.
Right.
As you gain more information, build rapport, and kind of explore different options. Sometimes it expands, sometimes it contracts.
Okay. So you have to be flexible and adaptable.
You do. You do.
Okay. Now that we've talked about ZOPA,
Yeah?
let's talk about leverage.
Leverage, okay.
That's a word that gets thrown around a lot in negotiations, but I'm not always sure I understand what it really means. Help me out here.
Okay, so leverage is all about having something the other side wants or needs. It's that bargaining chip that gives you an advantage in the negotiation.
Okay.
And Voss, he talks about two types of leverage, positive and negative.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Okay, so positive leverage is when you have something the other side wants,
Okay.
like a product, a service, or information they value.
Okay.
It's, that must-have item that everyone's bidding for at an auction.
Okay. Got it. And negative leverage is more about applying pressure?
Exactly. It's about having the ability to take away something they want or need.
Okay.
So think about deadlines, competitor offers, or even the threat of legal action.
Right.
Those are all forms of negative leverage because they create a sense of urgency or potential loss.
Okay. So positive leverage attracts them with something desirable, while negative leverage motivates them with the fear of missing out or losing something important.
You got it. And while both types of leverage can be effective, Voss, he cautions against overusing negative leverage.
Right.
Because it can damage the relationship and create a hostile environment.
Right. It makes sense. You don't want to burn bridges or create resentment.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Between being assertive and being respectful, applying just enough pressure to motivate them without pushing them away. And sometimes the best leverage comes from those black swans we talked about earlier, right?
Absolutely. Remember that story Voss tells about how he negotiated a lower price on a used truck?
Oh, yeah, the used truck story. I love that one.
Yeah.
He really showed how those seemingly insignificant details can really make a difference.
Right.
So he knew the asking price was a bit high,
Yeah.
but he also knew the dealership had a lot of inventory and was probably pretty eager to, move some vehicles.
No, if they wanted to make a sale.
Yeah.
That's always a good starting point.
Yeah. But to get them to come down on the price, he needed some negative leverage, some kind of pressure point.
Oh.
And that's where the Black Swans came in. He started casually chatting with the salesman, asking those seemingly innocent questions about inventory, sales goals, and the local market.
So like gathering intel without them even realizing it?
Yeah, playing detective.
Smart.
So what did he uncover?
He found out they had a ton of similar trucks on the lot, which meant, they probably had some wiggle room on the price.
Okay, so more supply than demand.
That's Black Swan number 1
Okay.
and Black Swan number 2. The end of the month was approaching.
Oh.
Meaning the dealership was probably under pressure to hit their sales targets.
Ah, a deadline. A classic form of negative leverage. So he used those 2 Black Swans to his advantage.
He did. Armed with that information, he was able to confidently negotiate a lower price, even though the salesman initially resisted.
Wow. That's a great illustration of how those little nuggets of information can shift the balance of power.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it shows that Black Swans are everywhere, even in everyday negotiations. The key is to be observant. Ask the right questions. Listen for those subtle cues that might reveal something valuable.
Yeah. It's like being a detective, a psychologist, and a master strategist all rolled into one. Voss's book provides such a fantastic roadmap, for navigating the world of negotiation and achieving better outcomes, not just in business, but in life, really.
It really is. It's about applying these tactics with integrity and respect,
Yeah.
always aiming for those win-win situations.
It really is. And speaking of those win-win situations, let's talk about one of the most common and stressful negotiation scenarios many of us face. Salary negotiation. I know I get nervous just thinking about it.
Oh, yeah. Salary negotiation.
Yeah.
It can definitely be intimidating. But Voss, he offers some great advice on how to approach these conversations strategically.
Okay.
And the key takeaway.
Yeah.
It's not about pleading for more money.
Okay.
It's about positioning yourself as a valuable asset
Right.
that any company would be lucky to have.
So shifting the mindset from, I need this job, to they need my skills and my experience.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the first things Voss suggests is delaying making the first offer.
Delaying, really?
I know. It sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
A lot of people think, go in strong, set the anchor high.
Right. That's what I always thought, too. But I'm curious, why delay?
Because by letting the other side make the first offer, you gain valuable information.
Oh, okay.
You get a glimpse into how they perceive your worth, what their budget range might be. Think of it like getting a sneak peek at their cards before you even play yours.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good way to look at it. So once they've kind of shown their hand, what then?
Well, then you counter with a number that reflects your true value and be ready to back it up with concrete evidence.
Okay.
Your skills, your accomplishments.
So you need to know your market worth, be prepared with data points, and be ready to articulate why you deserve that number.
Absolutely. Preparation is key.
Right. We've countered, but what if they push back?
This is where pleasant persistence comes in.
Pleasant persistence. Okay.
So you need to be firm, but not aggressive.
Right.
Advocate for yourself without getting adversarial. And one tactic Voss suggests is focusing on non-salary terms as leverage.
Okay. Like what?
So, things like vacation time, work from home flexibility, professional development opportunities,
Right.
those can be really valuable bargaining chips.
Because those perks might be easier for them to concede on
Right.
than like a straight salary increase.
Exactly.
And it allows you to kind of expand the pie, right?
Yes.
Finding those areas of agreement where both sides feel like they're getting something they want.
It's about being creative
Right.
and finding those win-win solutions.
Totally. I remember Voss telling a story about a student who used this tactic to land an amazing job offer.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
So the student, she really wanted this position in a specific division of the company.
Yeah.
But they were hitting a wall. The company was hesitant, and it seemed like kind of a potential deal breaker.
Okay, so what did they do?
Well, instead of like giving up on that dream division,
Yeah.
the student focused on building rapport with the hiring manager
Mm,
and exploring other options.
okay.
So they used calibrated questions to learn more about the hiring manager's role and authority.
So, like, digging for those black swans.
Yeah. And what did they uncover?
Tell me.
Well, through some skillful questioning, the student learned that the hiring manager actually had the authority to approve positions in any division,
Oh, wow.
as long as the role was based at headquarters.
Oh, that's interesting.
So by being flexible and curious,
Yeah.
the student unlocked a path to their dream job, even if it wasn't in the exact division they initially envisioned.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, the best opportunities are the ones we don't see at first glance.
Right.
It's about being open to possibilities, exploring different avenues.
I love that. Now, this brings us to another really fascinating concept from Voss, bending reality. Now, I know that sounds a bit like mind control or something.
Bending reality. Okay, I'm listening.
It's not about manipulation.
Okay.
It's about understanding that our perceptions of value, fairness, and risk, they're influenced by how information is presented.
Okay.
So think of it like framing the negotiation
Yeah.
in a way that highlights the benefits and minimizes the perceived drawbacks.
So it's like you're kind of controlling the narrative, setting the stage for a more favorable outcome.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one tactic Voss suggests for bending reality is using extreme anchors.
Extreme anchors. What are those?
So does that mean like making outrageous demands or lowball offers?
It can, but it's more about setting an initial expectation
Okay.
that's like far outside the realm of what you actually expect to achieve.
So you're basically starting the negotiation at a point that seems completely unreasonable, almost laughable, to kind of reset their perception of what's possible.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're like throwing them off balance.
Yeah, a little bit. And Voss, he tells this great story
Yeah.
about how he used this tactic to negotiate a speaking fee.
Oh, I think I remember this one.
He was offered a ridiculously low amount for a conference gig.
Ouch. I bet that was insulting.
Yeah, and so did he just walk away?
What do you do?
No, he got strategic.
Okay.
He countered with a fee that was like astronomically higher
Oh, wow.
than their offer, and he presented it with a straight face.
No way. I bet they weren't expecting that.
Not at all, but it completely changed their perception of his value.
Hmm.
They realized they were way off base.
Yeah.
And after some, back and forth, they agreed on a fee that was
Yeah.
significantly higher than their initial offer, all because he boldly shifted their reality.
Oh, wow. That's a bold move.
It is.
So by setting that extreme anchor, you
Yeah.
actually kind of nudge them
Yeah.
towards a much better deal for himself.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much power we have to influence perceptions just by the way we frame things.
It is. It really is. And Voss, he emphasizes that these tactics, they can be used in all sorts of situations, from salary negotiations to buying a car. It's about being bold, strategic, and understanding the psychological impact of those initial expectations.
It sounds like Voss's approach to negotiation, it's as much about psychology as it is about strategy.
It really is. It really is. And that's what makes his book, Never Split the Difference, so valuable.
Yeah.
It's a practical guide to becoming a more effective communicator and negotiator in all aspects of life, not just in those high pressure situations.
Right. Because these skills, they're applicable to so many different areas.
They are. We've covered so much ground today. I mean, we talked about the importance of understanding human psychology, mastering the art of no, unearthing those black swans, and even bending reality to achieve our negotiation goals.
It's a lot to take in, but it's all incredibly useful. And, I think it's important to remember that these tactics, they're not about manipulation or trickery.
Right. It's not about being a bully or a con artist. It's about approaching negotiation with integrity, empathy, and a genuine desire to find solutions that work for everyone involved.
Well said. It's about building trust. It's about fostering collaboration, creating those win-win outcomes that strengthen relationships and lead to lasting success.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. What black swans are lurking in your next negotiation? What hidden opportunities or constraints might be shaping the dynamics? And how can you use these tactics we've discussed to uncover those gems and achieve a truly remarkable outcome?
Those are great questions to consider. And if you want to learn more, we highly recommend checking out Never Split the Difference. It's a fascinating read that will change the way you think about negotiation forever.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of negotiation. We hope you learned something new and Feel empowered to tackle your next negotiation with confidence and skill. Until next time.